What would you do if you found a book that contained your entire life story, but you weren't allowed to read the final chapter? Aurelian had never been one to believe in myths. As an archivist for the Grand Academy, his life was built on cataloging truths, uncovering histories, and dismantling legends with facts. Yet here he stood, breathless, in the center of the fabled library of forgotten names. The chamber stretched endlessly in every direction, filled with shelves carved from what appeared to be the roots of an impossibly large tree. Bioluminescent fungi clung to the wood, casting a faint blue glow over the countless books. The air smelled of aged paper, ink, and a faint trace of something metallic. Aurelian's fingers trembled as he reached for the closest volume. "Don't." The voice startled him. A tall, gaunt figure stepped from the shadows between the shelves. Their eyes were like polished obsidian, reflecting no light, only endless depth. They wore robes of deep gray that seemed to ripple like smoke. "You're trespassing," the figure said, their voice soft but carrying the weight of authority. Aurelian swallowed hard but held his ground. "I'm a scholar. I've spent my life studying this place. If you know what this library is, you understand why I had to come." The figure tilted their head. "Understanding is not the same as permission. Do you know what this library holds?" "The lives of those forgotten," Aurelian said. "Every person who history has erased, every name no longer spoken. Their stories, preserved here. But those are just tales." The figure's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Tales have power, scholar. And this place is no myth. Each book you see contains the essence of a life, their joys, sorrows, triumphs, and failures. Including yours." Aurelian's breath caught. "My life? Impossible. I'm not forgotten." "Not yet," the figure said. They gestured, and a single book floated from the nearest shelf, settling into their hands. It was bound in plain, dark leather, with no title on the spine. The figure held it out. "This is your story. Would you like to read it?" Aurelian's curiosity warred with caution. He had spent decades piecing together fragments of lost histories, yet here was an opportunity to see his own story in its entirety. The temptation was unbearable. "What happens if I do?" he asked. The figure's expression darkened. "Knowledge always comes with a price. To read your story is to step outside it. You will see your past with clarity, but your future will no longer be your own." Aurelian frowned. "What does that mean?" "To know the future is to chain it. You will no longer act from choice but from the shadow of inevitability." Despite the warning, Aurelian reached for the book. The moment his fingers touched the cover, a jolt of energy surged through him. The figure sighed but made no move to stop him. The book's pages turned of their own accord, stopping at the beginning. Aurelian's breath hitched as he saw the words forming on the parchment, recounting his earliest memories with vivid detail, his mother's lullabies, his father's laughter, the first time he held a quill. The scenes unfolded before his eyes like a vivid dream. Page after page revealed events he had long forgotten, a childhood friendship that ended in betrayal, a chance encounter that had unknowingly shaped his career, a decision to stay at the academy one stormy night, avoiding a deadly accident in the town below. Then, as he turned another page, the ink began to blur. The letters swirled and rearranged themselves until the words became incomprehensible. He flipped forward, but every subsequent page was the same, a chaotic jumble of unreadable script. "Why can't I read the rest?" he demanded. The figure's gaze was unreadable. "The future is not written in certainty, only in possibility. But you have seen enough. Already, the choices you make will be influenced by what you've read." Aurelian closed the book, his mind racing. He thought of the betrayal he had just read about, the accidents he had narrowly avoided. How many of his decisions had been his own, and how many had been guided by unseen forces? "Is this why the library is hidden?" he asked. "Because knowing too much can destroy us?" The figure nodded. "The library preserves, but it also protects. Some truths are too heavy for mortal minds to bear. That is why I am here, to guard the books and the lives within them." "But what happens to the people whose stories are written here?" Aurelian asked. "Are they truly forgotten?" "Not forgotten," the figure said. "Preserved. To exist within these pages is to be remembered, even if no one speaks your name. Their stories shape the world, even if the world no longer knows them." Aurelian hesitated. The weight of the book in his hands was unbearable now, as if it carried the entirety of his existence. He wanted to return it to the shelf, to walk away and pretend he had never seen this place. But the scholar in him burned with questions. What happens if someone destroys a book? He asked. The figure's expression turned grim. The life within it is truly lost. Their influence on the world erased, their memory gone forever. That is why the library must be protected. Aurelian's heart pounded. He thought of the countless wars and calamities he had studied, the lives lost without a trace. How many of those stories were preserved here? Could he find them, share them with the world, give them back their voices? The figure seemed to sense his thoughts. You wish to take the stories beyond these walls, they said. A noble goal, but a dangerous one. The world is not ready for such knowledge. And neither are you. Aurelian's jaw tightened. The world deserves to remember. To learn from its past, not repeat it. Perhaps, the figure said. But are you prepared to bear the cost? To carry the weight of all these lives? Aurelian stood in silence, the book in his hands growing heavier with every passing moment. The Library of Forgotten Names was a treasure beyond comprehension, but it was also a prison. He could spend his life unraveling its secrets, but at what cost to himself and the world? Finally, he placed the book back on the shelf. I'll remember what I've seen, he said. But I won't take more than I can carry. The figure's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. A wise choice. Not all who come here show such restraint. As Aurelian turned to leave, the figure's voice followed him. Remember, scholar, the past shapes the future, but it does not define it. Your story is still yours to write. And with that, the Library of Forgotten Names faded into the shadows, leaving Aurelian to carry its secrets back into the light.